welcome. We're going to do it. 1113. It says here, must show all your work on a separate piece of paper. Must show all your work on the back or another piece of paper. This is super important, so make sure you are doing that or I can't give credit. So it says, find the missing side of each triangle using the Pythagorean theorem and round your answer to the nearest tenth if you need to. So if you don't need to, you don't have to, but if you get a repeating number of some sort, go ahead and round it. And then there's our formula, a squared plus b squared is c squared. So some general tips. When we add two numbers together after we square them, the order doesn't really matter, but the c is very important because it has to be the hypotenuse. And because we know that this is a missing side, one technique some kids like to do is just order the numbers, order the sides least to greatest, so they don't accidentally stick one of the shorter sides over here on the hypotenuse. And I think logically this makes sense that two smaller numbers should add up to the bigger number. Okay. So here's my notebook. I'm just going to do my work on a separate piece of paper here. There's my triangle, and that's definitely my c squared. So two of my sides are x and 10.6, and my last side is 11.4. Okay, so there's my setup. Two of my sides are x and 10.6, and that's my 11.4. And so I'm expecting a number less than 11.4. Cool, let's do it. All right, I'm tempted to say done. That's my answer. But my challenge here is, remember, I have to have a number less than that. So that might help remind you that, like, oops, got to make sure to take the square root of both sides. I don't want to know what x is. X squared is. I want to know what x is. So I need to use the inverse function to both sides. Oop, that's not what I want. The inverse, the square root of x squared would have to just be plain old x. And then the square root is that. And now we know we've been told to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that's the tens place. So I'm going to round to 4.2. And my answer was in kilometers, so my side should be in kilometers. All right, next one. Now I'm solving for the hypotenuse. So I'm expecting a number that's bigger than 8.8 and 10.5. So in any order, 8.8 and 10.5 has to equal x squared. And my expectation is that this is bigger than 10.5. So if it's got to be bigger than both, but if it's bigger than 10.5, it's going to be bigger than 8.5. So let's do it. Here we go again. That's bigger, but that's really big. It would be hard to make a triangle 8, 10, 187. That's too big. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I like to do it in a different color pen just because I like the way that looks. But okay, so the square root of x squared, take the square root. I get exactly 13.7. That's kind of cool. So I'm not even rounding to the nearest tenth. That's my exact answer. And those were in yards. Cool. Now my problem, I'm not solving for the hypotenuse, I'm solving for one of the legs. So one of the legs is 9 kilometers, one of the legs is x kilometers, and the hypotenuse is 11.1 kilometers. So there's my setup. And again, these could be in either order, it doesn't matter. Not my final answer. So when I'm checking for reasonableness, I know that I need a number less than my hypotenuse. Okay, so once again, I know to take the square root of both sides. Okay, and that's the tenths place. So that would round to 6.5 kilometers. And that makes sense. So the triangle is 9, 6.5, and 11.1. Question 4. I see I'm not solving for the hypotenuse. So I have x squared. One of the sides is 4.8. And the hypotenuse is 15.5. Question 5. So I think that's looking good. And again, I need a number less than that, and that's exactly right. So I checked for reasonableness. Question 5, I got this bad boy. I'm solving for the hypotenuse now. These two in any order would be perfectly fine. And I'm looking for a number bigger than these two numbers, and that would make sense. I want it bigger, but not that bigger, much bigger. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And it looks like my unit of measure is in feet. So I get the number, which would round the tenths place, 10.3 feet. Now looking at question 6, it looks like my hypotenuse is this, so I'm solving for one of the legs. One side is 6.9, one side is x, and the hypotenuse is 12.6. Way too big. So let's take the square root. Definitely going to round that. So the 4 would tell me to leave the 5 a 5. 10.5 feet. That's all I can fit on this first video. Check out the next video. Thanks.